Hi, I'm Phil Constantine. On this Travels with Phil, we're going to the National Museum of the American Indian in Washington, D.C. These are pictures from my visit in 2004 and 2016. Travels with Phil continues outside the Museum for the American Indian. There you go. Nice, unusual design. Don't have quite as many artifacts inside as when I came here for the grand opening. I think it was 2004. But still an interesting building. And again, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday are going to be Cherokee days here. Tommy and be playing the flute. Robert will be telling stories. Same stuff we see in San Diego at the Cherokee community there. You're going to see here in Washington, D.C. All right, so back outside the building. This was one of the last museums built on the mall. It's right next to the Capitol. And it's rounded in shape all around. It has certain stones outside in the four cardinal directions. Tried to give a little bit of a different feel to it as far as the different tribal groups in North America are concerned. And one thing you got to remember is not all groups are the same. They're not all similar. Not all tribes live in teepees. Not all tribes hunted buffaloes. Not all wore feathers in their hair. Some of them lived in very cold weather, some of them lived in very hot weather, some in humid, some where it rained, some where it was deserts. So trying to find some sort of mix that would match all of the various groups is what they've been trying to do. And it took a long time to get some sort of consensus in different ways that things could happen. And another consideration for this museum is that things change. You will see, as in many museums, rotating exhibits. So something you may have seen several years ago is not going to be there the next time you came in, which happened to me when I was there. When it first opened in 2004, a lot of the exhibits that were out were not being displayed when I was back there in 2016. I was there for 2004 for the opening of this museum, an amazing event. All kinds of tribal people from all over North America, thousands of people showed up. This is one of those four cardinal stones. That's a rock from, I think it's Kauai, and they're going to eventually send it back because they consider it part of the living being of the island itself. Let's go inside for one of my early videotapes that I did there. Travels with Phil continues in the American Indian Museum in Washington, D.C., or the Smithsonian Museum of the American Indian. This is the main rotunda area. Wide open area, very tall dome. Lots of material up here on the various floors. And this is June 8th. Coming up on June 10th. All my friends in Tahlequah and San Diego and elsewhere in the Cherokee Nation, Cherokee Days. Pretty good. I came just a little bit early. And actually, I just happened to be in town. Didn't even know there were going to be Cherokee Days. I just showed up at the museum and saw the sign outside. So I came back a couple of days later, and a lot of the folks were there from the nation. Chief was there, lots of other folks. And it's always interesting to just look around at the various displays they have here in the building. I love the rotunda. It's a large open space. You'll see light reflections coming inside. You'll see prism works on the floor moving around as the sun crosses through the skies. Lots of different flags here, Tree of Life. There's just so much to look at inside this facility. There's so many tribes. There's 500 nations in North America, roughly, round figures, very, very, very round numbers there. So every one of them has somewhat different styles, attitudes, heritage, traditions, languages in many cases than others. And so it's, again, a wide variety. Now, you will see some common themes, animals. You will see feathers in a lot of groups. You'll see woven material, obviously, leather material that came from animals as various reasons, both being it for spirit purposes, for just design purposes, for informational education, all kinds of things. Some of it just for art, just for the joy of doing it. I'm going to let a little bit of this go along without me talking so you can just appreciate some of the pictures. Some of these are considered traditional crafts. Some of these are day-to-day wear. Some of them are ceremonials only. Some of these are very old. Some of them are fairly new. The hoop are in the northwestern part of the United States. Getcha. Obviously, that's something new. Paiute and Ojibwa, sky-related artwork. Cree, Winnebago as well. When you spent a lot of your time in the olden days at night, all you got to look at is the sky. So a lot of star and astronomical, I should say. The 4 primary directions are important for many tribes. Not all of them have just 4. Cherokees have 7. North, south, east, west, up, down, and within. I'm Cherokee, by the way. The war headdress, war bonnet, that was more of a plains tribe. Eastern tribes didn't really use that too much. Folks along the Pacific coast didn't really use that. A lot of them wear it now. Mainly for taking photos.
I was with Phil Continues. This is in the Our Universe section, and this is about the Lakota. This right here, let you see it. Again, you can always zoom in or stop, pause it if you want to read it. But this is about Lone Dog's winter count, and they would put one major event for each year. This covers 1800 to 1871, and we'll move over here and show it to you. So there's all kinds of stuff. Now, actually, part of this material in here is in my first book. And he kept this for a long time, but this is the real thing. And you can see the periods in here when the disease hit. Zoom in on there. There you go.
Primarily smallpox.
Fever or smallpox. Wars. So again, this is Lone Dog's winter count. Lakota.
And if you don't have calendars, that's a good way to do it. You can always refer back to the year of the whatever, and people, oh yeah, I remember that. More star objects here, Cree, Comanche, different tribes. Some of the things they do here is compare, contrast different groups. Some sections are just specific to one group. Sometimes they try to group them together by subject. Just some absolutely beautiful beadwork. This would be considered wampum. Both had value and art. The George III Peace Medal from 1790. George III was the English king. Anishinaabe pipe. If you're interested in the pipes, you should look up my video on Pipestone National Monument. Very interesting spot. There you go. Variation between the Muskogee and the United States and how they treat land. Muskogee is the more common word used amongst them for the creek, some of the creeks. So this section is dealing with the treaties between the Muskogee and the United States, how each group approached it. Quite often, acts like this could also be used as a pipe, so they were multifunctional, and a hammer. Could be used in war, could be used as just functional, cut down things. More wampum. This is the Potawatomi. I'm sorry, there was a Horse Creek Treaty. I'm sorry. And this is about the Battle of the Middle of the Bighorn.
Continues here in the American Indian Museum. This right here is a painting by Cheyenne, Northern Cheyenne, of depicting the Battle of the Little Bighorn. About 1890s. It's on a hide. Style is very similar to what they call the Ledgers painting. Of course, those were done in the same era. May have been the same artist as well. This is the real thing.
The Ledgers painting came out of the Great Plains area, and this was reservation times, and what happened was they had no paper for them to draw on, so some of the store clerks or maybe some of the agents would give them one of their ledger books, which they used to make all their notations and write who got what and those kinds of things, and then just wrote on them. And so some of that artwork you'll still see has the lines on it, as if it was notebook paper nowadays. Lots of really nice basket work. Lots of tribes have done baskets. Kit Carson there in one of the pictures. They called it the Long Walk for the Navajo. It was their version of the Trail of Tears. They made them go from Arizona to New Mexico. A lot of them died there, and eventually they came back. Very sad situation for them. There's another section in here for the Potawatomi where they also had another forced migration. Andrew Jackson's sword during the Creek Wars. A lot of tribes in the South were not too happy with Andrew Jackson. Used by members of AIM in Minneapolis, American Indian Movement. Bury my heart at Wounded Knee and Custer died for your sins were some of those bumper stickers. This is a sign about the Freeman issue in the Cherokee Nation. Lots of flags. Most tribes do have an official flag. Kay Walking Stick, Cherokee artist. You had a display going on then. No pictures allowed. My Do Story. Lots of what they have there have been in big drawers, so you can pull them out, look at them, and then push them back in so they can store more stuff and have it accessible. And there's an effort to cover both traditional things that tribes did and modern things that tribes do that are still part of the culture. Stickballs. This is about Hawaii. They were a sovereign nation until the United States intervened. This is hair, braided hair. Petition against the annexation of Hawaii. And a lot of Hawaiians are still trying to get it back. James Madison Peace Medal from 1809. All right, back to another video from inside during Cherokee days.
Back in the American Indian Museum, Cherokee days. Cherokee days. All right, that's Tommy Wildcat out there on stage. Playing one of his own songs. There's Robert Lewis coming up the stairs.
Robert's a storyteller. You'll see more from him later. Tommy's a really good guy and a very nice flute player. He's considered a living treasure. This is not his music that you're hearing right now. But this was part of Cherokee Day, some of the displays they had out. And so again, when they have their exhibits, they'll bring out specialized things for certain events, certain groups, whatever the subject matter is. They also have another facility over in Arlington, Virginia, where they keep lots and lots and lots of additional material, some of which was purchased, some of which was appropriated, some of which was donated. There are 3 federally recognized bands of the Cherokees, one of them in North Carolina, 2 of them in eastern Oklahoma. That's why you see a little bit of differences in some of the dress wear. This is the youth choir coming out of Tahlequah, Oklahoma. They usually sing in Cherokee. Presentation going on inside the facility, talking about the different land holdings. Called a ribbon shirt and a tear dress. Some people call them tear dresses. There's a little controversy about that. All right, this is Robert Lewis, an official storyteller for the nation. He is a funny guy.
Robert Lewis at Cherokee Days at the Smithsonian, telling his tales.
Rabbit finds this huge anthill, lays a pouch on the ground like this, and then Rabbit begins to dance around it. The ants all working. Stop. The queen ant comes out to try to figure out what's going on. So you say, Rabbit.
Rabbit?
What are you doing?
What you doing?
The creator of everything.
The creator of everything.
Says you cannot fill up my bag.
Says you cannot fill up my bag.
I said you could.
I said you could.
I'm wrong.
What I'm wrong?
Look at you.
Look at you.
You're tiny.
You're tiny.
You're small.
You're small.
You're itty bitty.
You're itty. And it's big.
How can you fill up my bag?
How can you fill up my bag?
My people can do it.
My people can do it.
So look at all the people. And now you do this. All that people.
Robert grabs people from the crowd, so they're not professionals.
All that people.
Fill up the bag.
Fill up the bag.
Right now.
Right now.
All the ants crawled in the bag. The queen crawled in last and said, did you see that?
Did you see that?
Fill up your bag.
I'll let you tune in somewhere else to see the rest.
Yeah, you should try Cherokee.org, the website of the Cherokee Nation in Oklahoma. And they have some good stuff of Robert's there online. More pictures looking down from the upper levels. The Cherokee Code Talkers. Most people have heard a little bit about the Code Talkers. Most of them think it was only the Navajos. Actually, the Choctaws were one of the first ones to do it, and they did it during World War I. Cherokees and several other tribes did it in World War II. What they did was they'd get two folks that spoke the same language on either end of the radio during the military days. And they would use special code words plus the regular code for the military, and that way nobody could break the code, and that way they could transmit on the radio and get information, to different units without the Germans or Japanese or whatever. And other stories going on here. A story of one of my uncles was in the Pacific, and his lieutenant says, "Hey, Adair, don't you speak? You're Indian, right?" And he says, "Yeah." And he says, "Come here and see what this guy on the radio is saying." So he goes over on the radio and listens to the guy for a few moments and comes back and says, "I don't know what he's saying, because he's Navajo and I'm Cherokee. We don't speak the same language." This is Daniel Inouye. He's passed on since then. He was a senator from Hawaii, and so this was part of the display for the Hawaiians when I was there in 2004. Interestingly enough, Daniel Inouye was awarded the Medal of Honor for his efforts during World War II. He was part of the folks that were sent overseas and were not allowed to be in parts of the United States because of his ancestry and how he looked. You learn lots about various tribes, different names there for the Mohawks, Indian Tribal Act. What does blood actually mean according to the Bureau of Indian Affairs? These are from some Alaskan groups. Ribbon shirt, which you see the men wearing there. Different designs, but the basic concept is something that's used by a lot of tribes. The middle brown book, the one between the blue one and the white one, that's the book I wrote. And I was just tickled pink when I found it in their library. Now this is headgear for a horse. That took a lot of work. And again, most of these pictures are from my visit from 2004. The picture may be a little bit more grainy because I definitely did not have as good of a camera back then. Lanai Lenape, or Delaware. A lot of tribes call themselves something different than they're called in English. Cherokee wasn't even a word in our language. Other people called us that, and we eventually just adopted it. So the Delaware, their own name was Lanai Lenape. Different tribes have different names. Ojibwa and Chippewa. If you put an O in front of Chippewa, Ojibwa sounds sort of like Ojibwa. Same group. Seven's an important number for a lot of tribes. 4 is another one. Some similarities between the California groups, the southeastern tribes, the southeastern United States, some similarities there. Great Plains has a lot of similarities, mainly had to do with a lot of where your living environment was. This is Cherokee stuff. After a bogus election was held, there were about 18,000 Cherokees. That's a treaty signed by Kit Carson. The Cherokees contested an election where only a small number voted. The U.S. Senate decided to accept the treaty anyway. And of the 18,000 Cherokees, 16,000 of them signed a petition, which you'll see in here in a little bit, protesting the election because it wasn't really widely held and most people didn't know about it or weren't allowed to vote or didn't vote. But the government decided they wanted to get rid of us anyway, and that's where the Trail of Tears came from, 1830s. So you see a lot of original documents here. And this is where you can see some of those Cherokee ones. Some of these are old Cherokee stories. This is the kind of thing that Robert would tell sometimes when he was not trying to be funny. But he usually would add some humor to his stories. This is the petition I was telling you about. So this came from 1834-ish. That's the original petition. That's a blurry picture of the petition. Some of them signing in the Cherokee language. And then some of these are for the southern, the New Mexico connection. These kinds of things can be found in the southern part of the United States and all over Mexico. This display was not out when I was there in the 2016. It was there for 2004. So there's a lot of sharing of some certain traits and some customs. Some folks believe that some of the southeastern tribes came up from Mexico because of the mound builders. Other folks say that the mound builders went down to Mexico. So with a lot of stories, it all depends on who you listen to. So this has been a trip through the National Museum of the American Indian in Washington, D.C. Thank you for watching this video. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up by clicking on the button below. You're welcome to leave comments below as long as the language is family friendly. And finally, if you'd like to see more of my videos, please subscribe to my channel by clicking the button over on the bottom right-hand corner. Thank you again for watching.